Hey, it's Andy from Supergrow here. We've been working on something that we believe is the future of how B2Bs will go to market. We are going to show you how you can finally unlock employee voices at scale, turning your internal voices into credible LinkedIn experts that drive trust, influence, and pipeline at scale. We're going to look at it through two lenses. Firstly, starting with the employee experience. How can employees use Supergrow to build their personal brands? And then we'll look at it from a CMO or content leader's perspective, how you can control distribution and scale it across an organization. Let's dive in. Okay, so here we are as an individual employee within our own workspace. You'll notice that every individual that uses Supergrow, every employee will have their own workspace. This is their private area on Supergrow to make it feel like their home. First thing I'm going to direct you towards is settings here. Two very important things. So here, of course, you can choose the language that is most relevant for that employee. Very useful if you operate across multiple markets. Then content DNA, which is incredibly powerful. Content DNA is generated based on your LinkedIn footprint. If you've been posting on LinkedIn before, you will have already defined some voice, some expertise. We then craft that for you. We call it content DNA. Clicking this, it's automatically generated for you. So this is the best first thing you can check. You can look at your identity core. Who are you? Who do we understand you to be? Then you could look at the content pillars, the kind of content that you create, and also the audience that you appeal to. This is essentially our knowledge graph on you, which has been informed by your LinkedIn content, which means as a result, every piece of content that you generate through Supergrow feels exactly and uniquely like you. If you have not created anything on LinkedIn before, no problem at all. You can define your own writing style. So here you can upload anything you've written before, copy and paste that and inform that. It's essentially training the AI to write like you. So that's in settings. We're going to jump straight to content creation and we'll look at post generator first. As you'd expect with a tool like this, there are a range of tools to help an employee generate content. So whether it's generating a post from scratch, here if we click on this, as you can see, it's giving some suggestions because it already knows who I am. It's got that content DNA, has a knowledge of who I am. So if I wanted to write on the influencer and creator economy, I don't need to choose a tone of voice because essentially my tone of voice is my content DNA. Makes it really easy for everything to sound like you. So then we can just generate a post from scratch like then. So as you can see, very easy. We can generate this. We of course can edit it and refine it as you would expect based on this. Very simple. That's creating from scratch. We can also generate from audio. You can take voice notes directly in Supergrow, which means that if you're not naturally a writer and you are more of a verbal thinker, you can just add your voice note in here. If you already have a narrative, add that here and we will create posts from it. Back to post generator as well, there's also lots of ways to repurpose content. If you've got any content that exists already, you can go ahead and use that. Really easy to go ahead and create content through this lens as well. Now, onto something that I think is the coolest thing about Supergrow content creation tools, and that's Postcast. This is deeply rooted in helping subject matter experts within a business feel confident in their voice. So, Postcast is essentially like the most well-researched podcast interview you've ever been on. So we can have a discussion across three different contexts. We can have a discussion about a particular topic that we're interested in or we want to have a conversation on. We can have a conversation about an article that we found. That's a real nice way to get started. Or we could go deeper on a conversation that we've had before. But let's talk about a topic right now. We could choose a custom topic, could be anything. You're not restricted here. It's also going to suggest some custom topics as well. So here I'm going to talk about B2B marketing strategy and attribution. The suggested topics, again, are coming from my LinkedIn footprint, my content DNA. Essentially, these are the things that I talk about. As you can see, I'm a pretty one-dimensional individual. So I'm going to click Start Session. What we're now presented with is the first question so that we can feel prepared for this interview. You'll notice that it's talking about something in my past. And this is where Postcast is incredibly useful. because it not only understands the context of the conversation that we've asked us to speak about, it understands my history from LinkedIn. So I'm happy with this as a first question, so we're going to go ahead and start the session.
Hey there, welcome to Postcast. I'm Alex, your friendly interview host. I've got about 30 minutes to hear your story. Ready to start?
Let's do it.
Great, let's dive right in. Walk us through the moment at Content Cal when you realized that traditional attribution models were fundamentally broken for B2B marketing. What were you seeing in your data that didn't match what was actually driving deals?
So once we've had this conversation, we can now end the session when we're done. And what's going to happen is that that's going to present a synthesis of the conversation we've just had. So now here are the takeaways from the conversation, which essentially acts as a one-page content strategy. The longer that someone talks for, the more rich the content and the more posts that can be generated as a result. But as you can see, we've got memorable quotes, lessons learned, actionable advice, and mindset shifts, all of the core components that constitute a high-performing LinkedIn post. So then we press generate my post. Now we give you some recommended hooks. Of course, you can customize these, but this is where Supergrow is very strong about asking really high quality questions to extract the insights from the subject matter expert and then overlays that with our corpus of understanding of LinkedIn data on what works. And then overlay that further with your content DNA to make sure everything sounds uniquely like you. So then we can just go ahead and generate posts. And this is what the outputs look like. We give you 3 at a time, but of course you could go ahead and generate more if you wanted to. You can constantly make this a source of ever-growing content, if you will. So here we could go ahead and save a few of those as drafts. So now we've seen post generator, how we can create from scratch, from audio, how we can repurpose from existing content, and then how we can create unique, highly opinionated pieces through postcasts very easily. Of course, you can return back to any of those previous postcast sessions, ask and do follow-up sessions, or generate more posts if you want to. We also have a carousel maker, which will then turn any of the insights from your content into carousels, and so highly visual ways of demonstrating the points from your posts, nice and easy to do. Also, 3 other things I wanted to share with you before we move on to the admin level here. We can create engagement lists. So this is a real nice way that you can create a list of individuals that are highly respected in your space and influential and regularly engage in their content. So here we can like content. Michelle is someone that I respect in the space, so we can add comments. Here is a real nice way that we can organize lists, which might be like certain prospects or certain influencers in the space, and that we can get nudged when those people post so that we can be the first to respond. Because as we know, comments are a fantastic way of driving awareness of our profile, building followers so that more people will see our content when we've created it here. Now, of course, we want to understand what content is working too. This is where analytics is super useful. Of course, we've got trends and understanding of which you can look over different time periods. Very simple reports, which are fine. Now, I say they're just fine because there's actually more you can do. In the fact that it's useful to see that impressions grew dramatically on the 10th of February. So I can look back what I did on the 10th of February and understand, okay, well, impressions really spiked, but, follower growth didn't. Nothing else seemed to grow dramatically. 10th of February, there was no significant reactions, but LinkedIn clearly favored something that I did. So it's really interesting to see some of those insights. But actually the bit I prefer is the weekly report for a couple of reasons. This is the one that will get emailed to you and it's live in product, where you can truly understand what worked and why. This is where it gets really important, because just looking at data doesn't help in itself. Having insights helps. So here we can look at, all right, so this one was still below my average, but it was my best post from the previous week. What worked, what didn't? And of course, we don't always get it right, and I'm the same, right? So this wasn't very good. And here, never use your post to promote a company's fundraise unless you're directly involved. All right, so here that didn't work. So it's very clear about the reasons it didn't work, but a rescue idea. How could I make it better? Similarly with post by post breakdown, really easy to say, like do more, do less, what you could do next. Think about this as a LinkedIn coach that's always on. This email hits your inbox on a Sunday evening, ready for Monday morning, where you can think, I'm going to take these learnings and recreate some posts off the back of it. Now, this is one other thing I absolutely adore. Because it knows me so well, and it will know you so well because of your content DNA and everything that we've just been speaking about, is that we surface articles that are most relevant. So how solo founders can use AI to transform their content into business. All right. And it gives you a reason like why that matters for you. It helps you understand the context that it has on you and why this article is so useful. Gives you a suggested angle. And then what we can do, we could either create a post on this directly, or we could just jump into a postcast discussion. Like we've just been going through postcasts, doing a topic-based discussion, around a topic that we just came up with. But actually, we could just have a conversation about this industry insight, this Business Insider article, and get our own narrative on that. That is such an easy way of creating content and creating content into a habit, into a constant flywheel that allows you to continually improve and continually iterate. Now, with all the content that you've been creating, as you saw earlier, we've been saving that content to drafts. You can go into the Kanban board and see all of the drafts that you're working on. Here we have review processes as well, which are optional but very useful if you're working with clients or individual team members you would like to approve their content before it goes out. However, we can just go ahead and move some content into scheduled if we need to. So this is the Kanban view, which is nice and easy to use. You've also got the calendar view as well, which you can see your publishing schedule for the upcoming week or upcoming month, and everything automatically scheduled and published to that individual's social channels. Let's go ahead and elevate this conversation away from the single user construct and a team member using it into the admin using it. All right. So here we got our dashboard, which helps us understand if anything needs attention, because there's obviously approval workflows in Supergrow as well, which you can set up in customized approval flows. Of course, we've got our performance and our dashboard here. We have our weekly reports again, but we can see this at a team level. We can see across our whole team who's doing really well, who isn't doing so well, who's doing the most posts, who's inactive. This is our wonderful way of, like, from an operational perspective, seeing what's going on, who's doing well, who's not. We can now look at content opportunities. So we can see who's been served particular opportunities here, where Supergrow is recommending those pieces of content for people to create on. And then we could look at individual members' reports as well. So if we want to deep dive into, okay, well, if this individual is doing really well, we might want to view their report, and we can kind of help coach the rest of our team as well to help them learn from everyone else's success. And again, talking about learning what success, this is a really good summary. Every week you can just look at, okay, what's working across everyone? What are the learnings from everyone? And what could we do better? So for you as the person that's operating this as a system and trying to create that model of employee generated content and personality driven growth, you can really double down on what is it going to take for you to get to that next level. Super, super useful. Okay. But we can also create content at this level too. Of course, we've got a bunch of team members in here, which we can now look at all of their individual workspaces as well. So you can see each of their individuals' content DNA. We can make sure all of their LinkedIn accounts are connected. We can see what language they're posting in. And then what we can do, because we've showed you everything that the employees can do themselves, they've got so many content creation tools. But sometimes for you at an admin or organizational level, you need to help your employees do this. You need to help them turn it into a habit. And sometimes it can be hard to get people started on this journey. So to do that, you've got 3 key tools to help you in your armory here. Number 1, you have content boards. Here you can see everything that is scheduled to be published across all of the workspaces. Now you can also look at it in Kanban view. So if you prefer this view, you can see everything that's in draft or in review, everything that is scheduled as well. This is your operation center for everything that's happening. This is your distribution and publishing pipeline that you can see in one single view, and you've got full control over it. So if a media crisis happened, you can pause content across all workspaces, which is incredibly valuable. So that's your content board. Additionally, from here, you can schedule and publish on behalf of people as well. So as I mentioned, sometimes you're just going to need to create content and publish it for those folk that you support. It's all possible directly with Supergrow here. Now, there's also scenarios in the second way that I wanted to explain organizational level content creation. There'll be scenarios whereby you have a single message that you want to distribute to all of your team members, but want it to feel like it was written by them in their unique tone. So that is what organizational drafts are very useful for in your content library. So content board, we've created something and posted it to an individual workspace. Then content library, we're sending it to multiple workspaces and personalizing it at the same time if we so wish. So we could create an organization draft here, but in fact, I'm just going to use one that we created earlier here. So I could send this to multiple workspaces if I wanted to, but actually I'm going to hit personalize and send. So that then allows me to select all those workspaces, and as per the user's content DNA, it will rewrite it in their tonality, which is incredibly powerful. So even if they have different languages, they have different ways of explaining concepts, that is what this will be able to do. As you can see here, we get a couple of variations per each individual. So if we select this one, and then we can send all adapted. So I'm now going to send that draft to that workspace, and that is a way of having automatically adjusted pieces of content that's wrapped around the unique personality of the individual, but allows you from like a corporate admin perspective to take a singular message and scale that across a team. So content board allows you to schedule on behalf of others. Content library allows you to create organizational level drafts and publish it across multiple workspaces and personalize. Then you've got content interviews. So content interviews is the postcast session that we represented earlier. We could set up a content interview and essentially invite our team members to do interviews on topics that we define. Rather than your employee having to come up with a topic and be prompted, we can just set up a content interview. We'll set it for this individual. We'll then choose a topic. So this is going to be about educational piece. So on our product, there we go. We'll just put a topic here. We can then generate questions, and this will generate a raft of questions for this podcast interview so you can see what it looks like. So here it's generated some questions using, again, the content DNA of that individual. We can review these questions as an admin here, and then we're going to push the interview. We can now see that interview has been pushed here. And when we look at our emails, we can now see the email that's inviting that individual to start that interview. Really easy way of encouraging those individuals to participate in those postcast conversations. Then when we go back to content interviews, we can look at the completed sessions. So here we can see the one that was created earlier, and then we can see the conversation that our team member had. So we can track who's completing these interview sessions. We can see the content strategy that's being defined off the back of it. We can see all of the content ideas that are coming from this and all of the generated posts as a result of that, of which we can then edit and schedule on behalf of that user. Again, I'm just going to publish that, or I could schedule it, add it to draft, or I could send it for review for that individual to make sure the individual that we're creating content on behalf of is aligned with it. So as you can see, you've got many different ways that we can create content on behalf of others. The board allows you to schedule on behalf of others. Content library allows you to create a singular draft and push it to multiple workspaces and have it personalized. And then we can push content interviews to each individual's workspace as well, have unique conversations prepared for them, which extracts all the insight, which essentially means in one 10-minute conversation a week, each of your experts can have a whole week's worth of content prepared, all uniquely around their tone and their expertise and their subject matter knowledge. And then finally, if you want to add a bit of competitive element into the mix, you have challenges as well. So you can define challenges over specific time periods. You can choose a timeline for this as well, a reward as well, entirely up to you. And here we provide points based on certain engagement factors like shares, comments, reach, etc., volumes of posts. And this then allows a bit of competitive element to encourage everyone to participate in this. Because as we know, the future of B2B is going to be personality led. So this provides you the infrastructure from which to enable it. I hope you found this useful. Any questions, anything you need to know, just drop a comment below and we'll be in touch.